show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Doctor Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Tonight, Squee welcomes... And now here's the man himself, Doctor Squee.
Hello, and it helps if I remember to add myself back onto the stream. Professional. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. I'm Doctor Squee, and this here is my show. Tonight, we're going to be delving into the Justice League, the Snyder Cut. Does it do justice better to our heroes, or is it a lead too far? Three men join me to take on this epic 4-hour journey of the film. Please welcome to the Doctor Squee Show, Papa Paul G.
Good evening.
From the Retract podcast, James King.
Hello.
And your friend of mine, the Comic-Con DJ himself, Level Up, Leroy Rodriguez.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
How are you doing, gentlemen?
Very well. Very
Good,
good.
thanks.
And the Doctor Squee Show tonight, very much not brought to you by Virgin Media. Virgin Media, when you absolutely don't care if you get online or not. So we're on 4G tonight. So everyone welcome. Virgin Media, sort your act out. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Justice League, though. Of course, the Snyder Cut was released this week. An epic 4-hour, is it 4 hours and 2 minutes or something like this? But over 4 hours, certainly. Cut up into chapters this time. And Zack Snyder finally manages to complete the vision which he had originally. I suspect, perhaps with a little bit of help with hindsight. I feel like we definitely got his vision, maybe with a few tweaks, having known how the first one went down. I just don't believe he had all this in the chamber. I believe he had a healthy amount, certainly, of footage which was shot and footage which he had planned, which he then got to shoot. I think he's done a bit of tweaking to meet with fan reaction, though. There was definitely, for me, a lot more kind of hope in this cut than there has been in the previous Zack Snyder movies, in the Snyderverse, if you like, in the DC movies. And for me, it was a lot more of a satisfying kind of whole endeavor. I think there was a lot more which kind of explained where our heroes were all coming from. It didn't go into everyone's backstory, but it gave you a bit of an intro to each hero before they kind of got into the league. Because given that a lot of these characters have not been introduced anywhere else, we kind of needed to get to know them, I felt, before we kind of put them into the action. And it was really surprising to me. I don't know if this was, and by the way, before we mention the one we don't really like to mention from Buffy, Joss Whedon, before we mention him too much, I just like to point out anything which I say is not related to him as a person. We all know he is a vile piece of shit. That is established. We will just take that as written. Anything I say is just to do with his cut of the Justice League, which probably isn't going to be that more favorable, but just in case I say something nice, it is not aimed at him, only of the cut. But I don't think I'm going to say anything too nice about his cut because it was dog shit. I'm sorry, it made a mess. And suddenly seeing all the extra bits in there, it makes sense why it was a mess. Because it seems like they cut out whole chunks of backstory in favor of glib one-liners, which was standing in place of that. So even down to bits which I thought I enjoyed when I originally watched it, like just save one, you'll know not what to do with the rest, Batman to Flash. I thought I really liked that because it kind of seems like a sweet line. But now you see an actual backstory of the Flash, and you put in context of other things we already saw in the original cut. The one thing we knew about him is he wanted to save people. That's the only thing we knew about him from the original cut. So actually having a line, just save one person, then you know what to do. No, he knows he wants to save people. That's the one thing we knew about him. So that line really doesn't make that much sense in hindsight. Instead, having shown him saving one already, which I think was probably like Whedon's idea of kind of encapsulating that down, I don't know if it was his idea to cut it down or if he just got a directorate from the studio, maybe, that seeing as he was taking over, this is kind of coming to us 4 hours. We want it to be a lot shorter. Maybe it was under direction. I don't know. But certainly, this seems to put heed to a lot of those kind of problems. That's my opening salvo anyway. Let's go over to Leroy. What were your feelings on the Snyder Cut?
Well,
Go on
clearly
then.
I'm the only one that's made an effort today to get my aspect ratio right for this.
Yeah.
um, uh, you know, I agree 100%. The Flash, just to go on that Flashpoint, was my least favorite character
Yeah,
from the film.
Flashpoint, like it.
Flashpoint, yeah. Was my least favorite character. There was nothing to him. He was just there for gags and to land on Wonder Woman's boobs and feel awkward. And I had no interest in seeing a Flash movie with this Ezra Miller. And now this new cut, love it. Love what they did with him, how they built that backstory, how they gave him a real purpose. Seeing those powers when he smashes through the glass with just his finger, just showing you exactly how strong he is by using the Speed Force. And how I saw some articles where people were kind of ragging on that scene, saying it was a bit creepy, it went on a bit too long while Iris was in the air. But I actually thought it was perfect because it was actually showing you how strong he was. As soon as he just got off the mark, he turned around, his trainer's ripped because he's so fast. The ground tears up. He bangs out of this glass window, and he's so. If he was to grab someone really quickly and put them on the floor, he'd probably pull them apart. So he has to take his time and be really tender and gentle with it. So yeah, I'm all for this Snyder Cut for sure. It was, and I 100% agree with what you say as well. It feels like, it's lovely to have a little bit of hindsight and know what people don't like before you put something out.
Yeah.
And it definitely felt like, regardless of, what people think of Whedon as such, it definitely felt like someone leant on him and said, Zach's gone, can we make this a little more Marvel? And he tried to shoehorn that Marvel universe into the DC universe, which doesn't work. They're two very different universes and they're very different heroes. And so, yeah, no, I'm really happy to see this cut. It was a Snyder film, though. I loved it.
Yeah, and Chris Wood's just giving applause to all that. And I would add to that as well that I think you're right. Like, they are two different universes. I haven't been that enamored with the DC movie universe up to this point. However, I felt they found a way, keeping the kind of dark tone which they do like in the DC universe, which I'm not against, but the characters felt different. Like my main problem with the original cut as well, one of my main problems was that all the heroes seemed so homogenized. Here, I got a feeling differentiation. Like, there was kind of like the thing that Marvel does so well is giving each hero a different drive, a different purpose, a different thing they're going for. Whereas it seemed like so far the DC universe just seemed to want to make everyone Batman, just a brooding Batman character. Whereas Ezra Miller was a lot more hopeful. Like, he had a bit more purpose. You're totally right. I felt that bit more this time. There was a total better drive for Cyborg. No wonder he was so pissed. He got cut out most of the movie. He had an actual story in there. I'd be pretty pissed too if that
stuff was amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sorry, James, what are your thoughts going in?
Yeah, I've been a critic of Zack Snyder generally. I think he has serious limitations as a director. I think visually he's fantastic, and I think he's got a really good style. I think he struggles with telling a story, which is why I think his best work, things like 300 and Watchmen, when he's just taken a graphic novel that's got it all mapped out for him and he's used that as a storyboard, I think he can put excellent visuals to it. But I think he flounders a little bit if he's working with a less strong script. And having said that, though I think this cut does suffer from some of his worst indulgences, I think it's a really successful film. I think certainly compared to the original cut, and as Leroy said, I think we talk about Whedon, and a lot of people were very unhappy with what he did, but he was put in a situation where they've said, you're going to cut this down to 2 hours and you've got to make it into a Marvel film, but you've only got a limited budget to do reshoots anyway. So he was not in a great position, and the film suffered because of it. I think this is much truer to what it was meant to be. As you guys have said, the story has time to breathe, maybe too much time to breathe, but that's another issue. And it works. You can see what they were trying to do. I think it's the most successful they could have done, because there's other issues, like you talked about, Squee. We've not been introduced to these characters properly. So this film's got to do an origin for the Flash, an origin for Cyborg. Then it's got to bring them all together. We've had a little bit for Wonder Woman, a little bit for Batman, quite a bit for Superman at this point. So the fact that it manages
Aquaman at this point.
I know, yeah,
Yeah.
it was Aquaman's origin as well.
Yeah, but you don't get too much of that, which is kind of why I forgot. I think he's the one who's maybe least well served in this version. I mean, he looks great and he walks in slow-mo a lot, which is fine, but I think maybe because they knew there was an Aquaman film coming up, they don't seem to spend as much time with him, whereas I feel like The Flash and Cyborg really got almost an origin film of their own within it. And yeah, I think by and large, it's really, really successful. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to do. I thought it was going to be just a complete self-indulgent mess, and it's not. It's actually very coherent. I do, however, have some major issues with it, which I'm sure we can talk about later on, but I want to put it out there that overall, yeah, I think it's a very successful film, all things considered, because the story of this, you could write volumes on it.
And I'd just like to add, because you mentioned the kind of vision of Zack Snyder, which I do love. He's very kind of cinematic, very lovely. I just wish he'd use a torch in a few scenes, just like a little more light. I just want a bit more light. Just like,
Yeah,
he likes his dark colors. I know, Leroy, you love it. I know everyone else apart from me
He's
loves
got
it.
his blue acetate that he puts over the front of every single camera, and he goes, "Now shoot," and I love it.
Ryan, I just felt I was squinting through some scenes.
I wanted to pick up on Kingy's comment where we talked about, Cyborg and Flash jumping into it. Is it because Momoa is just such a strong presence on that screen? Because he is a strong presence in this movie. He's a big, strong, powerful dude on film and in real life. And I almost feel like we don't need it, because we're just like, there he is,
yeah.
Man.
I think there's a lot of that. That was inspired casting, because for decades people have made jokes about Aquaman, and they go, right, how can we stop people making jokes about Aquaman? Cast that guy. Nobody's going to say a word. So
You're telling me you wouldn't have loved it if he was the outrageous Aquaman from the cartoon? Oh, come on.
Jason Momoa,
I would have had a good time with that.
Jason Momoa can be whatever he wants, and I will not argue with him. So
I'm just saying I would have loved that. But yeah, the only thing I kind of missed, I'm kind of glad they got rid of Joss Whedon's kind of like, again, it's kind of just like very goofy jokes in this film. Like, he tried to add a bit of Buffy humor to it when he did add in jokes. Like, there was the bit where Aquaman accidentally sat on the lasso, oh, whoops, and he just is making kind of like silly jokes. But I did wish they were just given like one scene or two where Jason Momoa had been able to show his comedic side, which he managed to do in the Aquaman film. I wasn't a huge fan of that film, but I did like a few moments where it was like he was kind of grumpy when they wanted to take a selfie, and then through a series of pictures, you just saw him getting drunk with them, which is kind of nice little. It just kind of worked very nicely, and he can really sell that kind of humor. Sorry, can you?
Yeah.
Weirdly, the lasso scene, and I can't cite a reference for this, but that was claimed to be a Zack Snyder scene at one point. Because I, like you, it seemed a very Whedon scene, but I recall at the time, because the film was getting mild praise for its lighter tone, and I remember there was sort of a fan backlash saying, oh, well, everyone's calling out this moment, and that was actually a Snyder scene. But I'm assuming that was maybe overzealous fans, because I would imagine that the Snyder said there's not a frame of Whedon's film in this cut, which I believe. And I would imagine that he's used the vast majority of the footage he did film, because he wasn't.
Yeah, I can't believe we can cut anything. Sorry, I can't believe that Snyder cut anything of his.
No,
Like, what more could he do?
That may well be apocryphal, but I'm just putting it out there that was claimed at some point, just so we don't disparage anyone's. God forbid we disparage Joss Whedon. You know, he's such a paragon.
So enough about the piece of shit, though. Paul G, who is apparently tonight drinking from a very large hamster drinking vessel.
Bottle, yeah, exactly. You should see the size of the hamster.
I thought you were the hamster.
Steady as those cheeks.
Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with this. It was everything I hoped for, and certainly in terms of effectively bookending the three movies. I think it fits in beautifully with Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice in carrying the theme.
Oh no, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, because I know you're a huge fan of those films. But yeah, I thought it really captured the sort of like the essence of those films. Yes, it is lighter. Yes, it is. It's so much better than the theatrical cut that you can barely compare the two. It's chalk and cheese. Just the exploration of the characters, as you say, I think a good point, as Leroy said earlier, with the whole Flash. It's not only just exploring his powers and how his skills is. I think it's also how fast his mind works as well. The whole scene with like the hot dog, you can see he's not only moving fast, he's thinking fast. He's thinking about where he's going to be, from now, and how he's already setting that up. And he's almost got like spare time to do that. That's the beauty of it, and he does that in a number of scenes. I think Wonder Woman in this film, comes, it's having seen Wonder Woman 84, which I think is a huge disappointment of a film. It's wonderful to see the warrior, the Amazonian warrior, and she is so strong again, as she was in Dawn of Justice. You've got that character again. She's powerful. You can believe she's 5,000 years old. She carries that weight, that charisma, but also she's a skilled warrior as well. And I don't know, I haven't watched the theatrical cut for some time, but she seems more brutal and more raw in this film. The decapitation of Steppenwolf when in the Old Bailey, when she's disposing of the terrorists, sort of thing. Yeah. They don't make it out of that. There's bloodstains on every wall. And that's so refreshing.
You'd see that was one of the few things I rubbed against on this, because I still want, this is the way for me you differentiate your characters. So you've got Batman, who will do whatever it takes. He can get a bit rough and ready. He can't get bloody. I like my Superman, unless he's being controlled by evil kryptonite or he's just come back from the dead, which we'll get onto in a bit. But apart from that, I want my Superman and my Wonder Woman, I want them to be the kind of like heroes who try and lift above that. And like, you can still give them obstacles. For me, it's the difference between two types of hero that you get, and both I really love. Ones are ones which are kind of mirrors for ourselves. So they find it really difficult. They do the wrong things sometimes, but they're always kind of trying to do better, but they're always on the side of good. Like us, they make mistakes. And there's other ones which are just paragons. They're things which we aspire to, those heroes. I sort of want Wonder Woman to be that. I didn't like her kind of being that gory. I just, to me, that's what you've got Batman for. You can have that still. You don't have to take that from the film. But do we need Wonder Woman to be that? So while we're on that, Leroy, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, she's a warrior princess, man, and she's badass. And yeah, I think this was great. And so, I'm a comic book reader, and so I find that a lot of the time, people's views on their certain superheroes are very, they'll go back to Christopher Reeve Superman, which is all very bright, very, very optimistic. And your Wonder Woman, what's her name? Linda Carter, the fantastic Linda Carter, and we sort of go back to that sort of childhood memory of these wonderful superheroes and the super friends. and it's light and bright. Batman's always a bit dark still. Even campy Adam West, there is,
Linda Carter.
He's still in grey and dark and blue, and he does one episode reference his parents being brutally murdered. So like, in the comics, these heroes aren't as black and white, as good or bad, or there are like these lines that they now cross, and that may be this element of time that's come along, and how we're now sort of seeing these heroes. So there is these blurred lines. The anti-hero is all the rage these days, and so to see Wonder Woman be an Amazon warrior and to take off his head and send that message across those dimensions, and she doesn't even have to do that. He's going through, he's been beaten, Superman's blown off his horn, and she's like, no, you're not. Bang, off comes the head, lands at Darkseid's feet, and that's just sending a message. So yeah, I kind of dig it. I really do. And as for sort of broody Superman, now we were talking about hindsight being a wonderful thing, and I'm reading so many different stories about what Zack Snyder had planned from day one, and it would always be this, and if I ever got to finish my Justice League story, Superman would end up being this. And I do wonder if there is an element of this where Man of Steel comes out, we did get a pretty emo Superman, living in a very grim, realistic world, and coming to terms with the tragedy of his dad just deciding to off himself so he wouldn't be exposed and all of this stuff. But like, were we actually going to see an evolution of Superman come from emo kid Superman to the godlike leader of the Justice League, which is what Zach was saying he was going to give us? Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, Zach, but I don't know, because that was everyone's major problem with Man of Steel. It was that he was a bit too, he wasn't like, ha. So I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
dig it.
I'm not saying they have to be in tights and like underwear on the outside. I'm not saying it has to be that. I'm just saying,
No, bring back
from my limited comic book. Oh yeah, I wanted. Okay, I do want the underwear back, but like no tights. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying that they can't have different shades of darkness, but like, am I wrong in saying that generally Superman and Wonder Woman are the more hopeful of the superheroes in the comics? From the limited comics I've read, I've kind of read a lot of the kind of key issues. I must admit, I'm not that deep bench, but are they not more tending towards the light than say a Batman?
Yeah, 100%. They are. They do lean towards the light more, and I think they did in this film as well.
Yeah.
But they will get their hands dirty, and they will, like Superman pounding into Steppenwolf at the end and just laser beaming the hell out of the guy. They will get like down and dirty like that in the comics when it matters, when people's lives are at stake. So yeah, although Steppenwolf was technically being thrown through that vortex, and she didn't have to take his head off, I suppose. It probably just felt good at the time.
If anything, it's like Flash is almost your heading towards the light in this particular movie. He's the one that, but the beauty of this movie was that
James, your thought of the kind of darker tone of these. Oh,
so yeah, all I was going to say was that the Flash was he was much more developed. He was more confident in his skills and his abilities. They were already established compared to the first movie. Even then, sort of thing, he is the one you wouldn't expect to take somebody's life easily. It's just not Barry Allen's character. So
the darker tone of something.
I'm maybe somewhere in the middle on this one. Like, I totally get you guys' points, and I like the idea of Wonder Woman being more of a warrior and blah, blah. So for that reason, I'm totally on board with cutting Steppenwolf's head off. That rings absolutely true for me, and I really like that. I wasn't as keen on the bit in the bank because she's already defeated the guy and then decides to do a armband thing and blow him up. And this is where I go back to my issues with Zack Snyder as a storyteller, because in one moment you have Wonder Woman, not an innocent guy, but a guy who was defeated and was no immediate threat, and choosing to kill him when she could have just detained him. And then immediately you have a little girl saying, I want to be just like you. And that's too much of a clash between this adoration of a hero, but you've just witnessed that hero killing someone who was not an immediate threat. So I just think you get moments like that that just clash a little bit. So overall, I thought Wonder Woman was great, but that one scene where she kills the guy at the end of that fight, and then it's compounded by the girl with this sort of sweetly looking up to a thing, I just don't think that works tonally. Superman, I rewatched Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, and Man of Steel, yeah, gets a lot of stick for the emo-y type stuff, and there is an element of that, but I think there's a lot more optimism in that film than I initially thought there was, and I do think that film has aged better than some other ones. Batman vs Superman, I think the idea of exploring how would the world react to Superman, and maybe not everyone would like him, I think that's fascinating, but I don't think it's explored as thoroughly as it should be. I think if you're going to tell that story, one, you need to do it in a bit more depth, and two, you also need as a viewer to know that Superman is good and virtuous. And I think we didn't get that in that. They played it a little bit as, ooh, Superman's not sure of himself either. And I think that it just butted heads, the two ideas going there. However, in this film, I think this is Zack Snyder's best take on Superman. And I think, like Leroy was saying, I do think he did have an arc planned that Superman was going to go from not being the Superman we necessarily know and think of to getting to that point. And I do think he gets him to that point in this film. Like, I thought the sequence where you had his two dads effectively talking to him, I thought that was hair-raising. That was absolutely brilliant. I mean, Russell Crowe, still not as good as Marlon Brando at delivering that kind of speech, but then, probably not many people are. But I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I think it was undermined slightly, and it's so nitpicky, but the black suit thing, and I know that that's from the comics, and Superman wore it, and so he could draw more power from the sun. So there is a precedent to that. However, in the film, that's not even given lip service. So it just feels like Zack Snyder going, you know what, that suit's cooler when it's black. And maybe it is, but I think the fact that he's done this arc and got Superman to that point, it would have had so much more impact if the big reveal had been the classic costume that we all know and the symbol of how we usually see Superman. So I think the aesthetic choice of doing the black suit undermined it slightly, but the character work, I think, is the best that we've seen in the DCEU for Superman. So generally in favour, but still don't like Wonder Woman blowing the guy up. That's where I stand. And I think as we got a time lag.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, getting on to, since you mentioned Superman, I love that bit where he's going. Yeah, I seem to be getting a lag with you guys.
Lag.
Well, are you hearing me okay now?
Yeah. It's because it's like not Virgin Media.
Like, I was going to say, with Superman, anyway, hopefully you'll hear this. I did think, I kind of, I love the bit where he's going through and he hears his two dads speaking to him. But my kind of point would be that I wish I'd kind of heard that from them a bit more when they were actually around. Like in both the characters, you've got Park Kent who just goes, yeah, if someone's got to die, they've got to die. Yeah. If you, with Jor-El, you've got, they will fear you like you're a god. How will they stop you? And then suddenly in these flashbacks, they're talking all hopefully. They've just picked out the few lines where they've said hopeful things, which they weren't like that when we saw them. I thought that was a little bit of bullshit, to be honest with you. But again, for this film, it worked. It's like if you take it in isolation, for me, everything in this movie works. But if you look at what Superman was like when he was alive in this version of events, they're treating him like the hero we know from other versions of Superman, which he hasn't kind of been up to this point in this longer story. And I feel like, the same thing with Lois and Mark Kent. They minimized that story a bit more in this one. But you've still got the idea they're like besties when they really haven't shown that relationship. They haven't had that really long relationship with Clark and with Lois. You haven't had that whole thing of Lois building up the relationship with Clark and with Superman and then finding out they're the same person. Straight away, she knows they're the same person. That takes that way. I think there's a lot of pathos they've ripped, which they now kind of try and draw on in this film. Again, if you just ignore what's gone before and treat this as one film, with who we know Superman to be from lore, I love it, but I just don't think they've kind of earned it. But again, I loved it in isolation.
There's retconning going on, like there
Paul,
was.
you got any kind of like thoughts on the Superman arc?
No, carry on, James. What you was going to say something?
I don't agree with James. The terrorist guy was reloading, shoot all those people in the Wonder Woman. Okay, I would have to watch it again, Adam. Sorry, I do apologise. If the guy was an immediate threat, I still think she could have probably disarmed him without blowing him up. But I will watch the movie again. Sorry, I was saying, Squee, about what you were saying, how it was like a bit of a retcon, and some of the dialogue that they added into that sequence was recorded after the fact, so that wasn't spoken in the earlier films. And I think this cut does it less than the theatrical cut did. But you're quite right that there is this thing of the world's mourning from the death of Superman, and when you've just come off watching Batman versus Superman, you go, well, wait a minute, why are they mourning so lot? They didn't like him that much. So there's a bit of a retcon thing going on. But you know what? I'd rather a minor retcon to tell a better story than slavishly devoting yourself to it and writing yourself into a corner. I mean, if we're going to talk about retcons, the end of Batman versus Superman, we saw the soil rising up. Nothing about that. So, it's fine. It's fine.
To pick up on your point that you made about the suit, James, being black and kind of Superman coming out, and by the end of this, he's that.
I was going to say, let's jump onto the bad guys. Oh, sorry, Leroy.
We're on the route to getting the Superman that we all know and love as such. Do you think they made that choice? Because, I mean, it looks fantastic, the black suit. And the black suit is the suit that he came back with when he died in the comics. And so everyone has been like, we want the black suit, we want the black suit. This was in the comics. Do you think that was just a choice to make us comic book nerds happy?
I think
it's more of a stylistic choice rather than a choice that worked with the movie. It's just like,
it's definitely it was definitely a stylistic thing, and we know that because when they made the film, he was in the blue and red suit, and they've digitally done it afterwards. And so, I think on one level, it's a nod to the comic fans, and I also think it fits the aesthetic better. I think it's just me that I would have. To me, the image of Superman emerging in the more of the classic suit would have had more impact, but I think the character work with Superman is that good in this film that it doesn't undermine it to that extent. It is just a minor quibble that I've got. Seem to have lost Squee. Paul, you're in charge.
I'll take over. So, how do you feel, sort of like the character of Steppenwolf, sort of like the change between the two films, sort of thing? Because now you had Darkseid, was effectively his boss, and you had Steppenwolf, who now had a lot of motivation for what he was doing. You just had, what's your thoughts on that, Leroy?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic how they actually. So as a comic book reader, watching Justice League, I go, oh, great, Steppenwolf. Yeah, I know who he is. As casual comic book or superhero movie fans, but they're like, well, who's this guy? Like, he's one of the New World Gods, but like no one really knows about that stuff. So he's not a big enough character to hold that movie. And then he's kind of, he's down on Earth trying to get these mother boxes, and it's not really explained why he's here. He just might want to bring Darkseid here. Whereas the new Snyder Cut fills it out completely we're aware that he's been shamed. He dared to go up against Darkseid and try and rise against him, and this is his punishment. He's now got to go and find the mother boxes, and then he comes across the anti-life equation as well, which is like a double bubble bonus, and he's constantly begging pretty much for forgiveness, and he's trying to he's just like a lapdog, isn't he? He just wants his master to be happy with him, and he's going to come, and the look of fear and kind of giddiness is like, there's so many different emotions when finally Darkseid's like, all right, you find this and I'll come to Earth, and he's just like, oh wow, I've done it, I've finally done it, sort of thing. So how many thousands of years has he been punished and just been the whipping boy, and it just made him a sort of a worthy adversary, because we sort of suddenly care about him. We know he's been through hell and back as such, and
particularly like the idea of him being sort of this underling. You've got reinforced by the fact that the middle management guy keeps turning up, and he might as well have job there. Like, so how's it going then? Are we up to 15,000 worlds yet? No. Darkseid's not got time to talk to you now. We want to see some serious results before we get to that stage. And it does give him so much more character. And again, that's, I think, part of, like you're saying, unless you know this guy from the comics, you don't really get his importance and everything. And part of that, I think, is a lack of foresight with the planning on the part of Warner Brothers with how they put this universe together. It's like, I know it's not the same thing, but you look at Marvel and they introduced Thanos in like a post-credit scene in the first Avengers. And the majority of people, I'm a comic book reader, but I'm not, not as much as you are, Leroy, but, I've read a fair bit, and I was still like, I kind of know who Thanos is, but I'm going to have to do some research. But Marvel did that and introduced it, and it allowed it to permeate through popular culture and for people to go back and read the comics. And so by the time you get to Infinity War, you know who he is. And I think if Warner Brothers had spent a bit more time planning and building it up, we probably wouldn't have had that problem. It would have been the case that we would have had an idea who Steppenwolf is, or certainly who Darkseid is. And you can see elements of that obviously Darkseid was going to be a bigger villain in the next film, and they were starting to do that. But I think again, this is another reason why the film's such a success, is the fact that they haven't got all that groundwork, but they still managed to make it quite epic and to hit a lot of the right notes. So again, all things considered, it's a very impressive bit of work, really. I think I'll leave.
Guys, can you hear me in real time?
Yes.
Yay! Okay, I'm going to jump in. So, speaking of the kind of the bad guys, if we take them as a kind of whole set.
Oh, we've done that.
Fuck you. To me, it was the kind of the look of them I want to pick a bone with, though. Like, I didn't mind the kind of setup of it, and they brought in the kind of big bad this time, but I really just didn't feel a real presence of the bad guy. For the look of it, to me, what they've done so well on Thanos, like over the time, they've managed to build him up, make him look better and better, to the point when he's the bad guy in Endgame, then he's suddenly a lot more of a real character. He looks like someone who's really there. Yes, he's big and purple, but like you get the impression there's a real physical thing there. I just never got that feeling from any of that kind of whole crew of bad guys, including sorry, I'm forgetting their names now. I got so distracted by changing devices.
Darkseid.
Darkseid. I don't know. Was there anyone else put off by this CGI on it?
I think to a certain extent you have to forgive the CGI for this, because one, it's going to be done on a limited budget. Two, I think they went back to, my understanding is they went back to Weta, I think, who did the original computer models for this, and sort of said, look, we need to reshoot some of this. And they turned around and basically sort of said, look, we've moved on. The technology's moved on. We're going to have to take all the computer models you've got. We're going to have to redo them and import them into the new gaming, basically the new graphics engine to actually generate this stuff. So I think in terms of if you're comparing like Thanos and the post-production and the modeling that you can do on that to what Snyder's had to work with on this in terms of budget, it's always going to look like, you know, something done with a Quake 3 engine, unfortunately. But I can live with that to a certain extent. It was more the introduction of the character was far more important than the actual.
I'm just saying, on
visual
everything
look.
else in this movie, they're shitting money all over the place. You can see money in every frame of every reshoot. But no, CGI, no, then we're going to scream. Come on.
But
I think the thing is, though, that I don't think there were as many reshoots as people think they were.
Exactly.
I think the majority of the reshoots were what we see in the epilogue. So what he probably had to work with was stuff from his rough assembly cut. So his footage that he'd filmed, which will be all the live action stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the stuff with Darkseid, the majority of the stuff with Steppenwolf has been created solely in a computer on the budget that they've afforded them for this second round of post-production. So it's not going to come up to measure with a normal Hollywood blockbuster. And things like you're talking about Thanos, that was done. They had Josh Brolin there in mocap, interacting with a lot of the actors. I really don't think that would be the case. I think that would have been far too expensive for what Warner Brothers were willing to pay to get this cut out. So I think it will just be purely in a computer without necessarily any reference points. So, I mean, some of it does look dodgy, but I've seen dodgier special effects in a film that's gone straight to the cinema and has had all its post-production time and not had the checkered history that this one does. So, yeah, I can let some iffy CGI go, to be honest.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it was also just building on the fact that, to me, I was already not as invested in the bad guys. Like, I think this cut does a lot to flesh out the good guys and why we care about them, and why when Batman says they've never faced us united, I actually gave a shit when he said that line this time. First time around, not so much. I was like, yeah, but are you really? You've kind of just fallen together and you kind of just get like going through the motions, but I'm not feeling that united. When he said it this time, I'm like, fuck yeah, they're united. Oh yeah. Whereas with the bad guys, it was like, we're after some boxes, because if you put the three boxes together, they become one box. And there's a magic world code and just stuff. Believe us. Just, we're bad guys, all right? We're going to end the world. Just trust us on this one. And I didn't feel that same investment in the bad guy as I did in the good guys. I didn't think they was fleshed out. So when the CGI was a little bit dodgy, I was like, I'm already not caring about you that much. If you look a bit fake as well, that's going to add to my lack of care, I guess, was the thing which kind of drove that for me. Leroy, any thoughts on that? Or is it just kind of like, I have to suck it up when it comes to the... Did you really feel I might have missed some of it because I was trying to switch from my iPad to my mobile phone. I'll be on like a little fucking iPod shuffle soon. But anyway, what were your thoughts on, like, did you feel like the bad guys' impetus was good enough, the reason why they were doing this?
Yeah, suck it up. we just say about that. So yeah, Steppenwolf in this cut, and Squee is frozen now, hasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as I told him to suck it up, he's like,
Exactly, you're done.
We've killed him. If you can hear us, we were saying, you know, Steppenwolf's. He's
on the iPod shuffle.
Doctor Squee, the Snyder Cut. Here we go.
He's going to have so much fun.
Putting up with a lot of this. I've got like 24 hours there. Assume you agreed with everything I said. We'll just move on. We've got a question from Adam Livingstone.
Oh, we've had that.
We've had that.
On that one.
The choir. Just them standing there like, well, this is awkward. I'd just like to have seen how...
Water, like wherever Aquaman's swimming.
And the weird sniff of the jumper right at the end as well.
Because, I just could have done without it. I thought that I was so on board. I thought I was so engaged all the way through, never lagged in the movie. And then and it felt very pointless epilogue. Jared Leto actually play a version of the Joker as opposed to whatever the fuck he was doing before. This kind of little extra bit. I think it should have just ended where the original cut ended. Then we cut to epilogue. Leroy?
To go to the marsh scene, and then we get Epilogue, I would have liked to have maybe seen that in, but having Batman drop an F-bomb and tell Joker that he's promised Harley he's
Some of the good work, it leaves a bit of a sour note. The Martian Man, there's some weird dialogue in it that I am known by many names, but he doesn't. And then so at the end of the scene, he goes, "Oh, by the way, one of my names is Martian Manhunter." He was not bothered Manhunter. He wants to go back to bed. But, and the fact having
you're not going to ask me. Well, I mean, I could tell you them if you want to know.
they're really good names. Go on. But anyway,
Yeah, you love them. I mean, if you're curious.
I suppose the cool thing is when we first got our first ever Justice League teaser poster back in 2015 or whenever it was, it said Unite the Seven because Green Lantern were meant to be in it and he wasn't. So finally, we get the seventh right at the end. So very nice. But yeah, it's fine for what it is.
And I think this is the thing. This is why it would also really set it. I was just going to say this is why it would also have set it up so much better to get us invested in an idea of a sequel, because you've got Martian Manhunter kind of suggested, you've got the Green Lantern Corps been put in there. So there's a suggestion of a kind of an ongoing story, as well as a much more satisfying story for the heroes we've got, and more reason for them all to be there. Your thoughts on the epilogue, Mr. G?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount to add to what's already been said. Yes, I agree. It should be in the film as opposed to at the end of the film. But the elements I did like about it was things like the Joker with all his police badges on the front, almost like trophies, sort of thing of the number of police that he's killed, murdered, taken down. Yeah, Barry Allen's armor, the sort of thing. But it's clearly there as a yes. If basically, if there is going to be a continuation of the Snyderverse and there's going to be Justice League 2 and 3, this is what you would have won. That kind of thing. This is where we're going with this this film.
A sane Lex Luthor.
Yeah, sort of thing. But I mean, and also the Lex Luthor scene. That was nicely done. The focus was on Batman, as opposed to creating a league of their own in this. So I thought that was better. And also the fact that you had Deathstroke sort of thing, as part of the team. And he's got the Mohawk as well, sort of thing, which I think is like a nod to the fact that he knows he's going into battle and he knows he's not coming out of battle. Sort of, it's a one-way trip. So there's lots of little elements in it that were quite nice. But as you say, I think it would be better if it had been in the middle of the film. So
yeah, and with Lex Luthor, I just felt this was the kind of Lex Luthor I was hoping to get in the first place. The more it's like Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network. I wanted that kind of like he's too clever for the room. He thought it was better, but instead he was like, "Oh, I'm Lex Luthor," and he was trying to joker up Lex Luthor, and it just was weird, and it just did not work, and I did not like it. And this was the kind of like version which I thought he was going to do going in. And I don't know. Again, it just seemed like more promise that I think that scene would have worked pretty well as a teaser, as opposed to the epilogue, which, as you go, we've all said, it's kind of too long and misplaced here at the end. I kind of cut down on it, bit of it earlier on in the film. I think would have fit in very nicely. The only other thing I wanted to quickly bring in was Kevin Smith said on That Man Beyond this week that he had spoken to Zack Snyder, and he had said about with the story with Robin, there was a story he wanted to bring in, whereby the reason why he'd got killed in this version was that he got killed by the Joker at Wayne Manor, and they burnt it to the ground. And it was because in this version, Batman had been going, it's like, "Oh, you're not man enough to take on the Joker." Basically goading the boy wonder, which seemed pretty prickish. I know Bruce Wayne / Batman can be a prick, but like pretty much setting him up to get himself killed by going, "Yeah, you're not man enough. You're not man enough." Sort of makes Batman a bully, which I'm kind of not too in favor of. But that's why I end up. Yeah, but Frank Miller, I don't know. Frank Miller's good at saying. In the comics, I have read some comics when Bruce Wayne is an out-and-out dick to Robin, but he's never kind of. I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't feel like a bully. It feels like a prick of a dad who's just being an asshole to his adopted son and never being fair to him. But I never feel bully. When I heard this description, I just thought that's a bully there. And you know, of all the things you can make your heroes or your, you know, make them anti-heroes, this level up Leroy was saying, I love all that, but just never make them a bully. What do you guys think of that kind of idea that didn't end up playing out here?
I wonder if there's, you know, there's two ways you can read a text message or be sent a message, and you could always read one in a negative or a positive light. So where if they're saying, well, there's the talk of like he was saying you're not man enough, whether that's, you know, they've kind of done a mixture of probably Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, and so probably mashed up the two Robins in their mind together. And you've got Batman, you've probably got like a really impatient Robin, and you've got Batman saying, no, you're not ready. You're not there yet, pal. You're still a kid. You can't take on it, the Joker. You're not man enough yet. Don't sort of run before you can walk. Or there's the way of he's going, you'll never be a man unless you can take him down. You're definitely not man enough, not like me, pal. So yeah, there's two ways you can kind of almost take that, isn't there? So I guess unless we get those hashtags going for Justice League 2, we'll
No, apparently DC have made it very clear that this is not the official cut. They're sticking firmly to the Joss Whedon cut. Because, of course, if this version's a lot more popular and doesn't involve, you know, a guy who's been kind of suggested to be a little bit rapey, let's stick with their cut as opposed to this guy who everyone's now applauding and they love their cut. Because why wouldn't you?
They're going to reset it all with the next Flash film, so it's not going to matter. It's going to multiverse it all so that they can all have happened and it's all fine. And that's kind of my thoughts on the Robin thing. I think by choosing to have a Batman that's already had a 20-year career, it creates a space for the viewer, the reader, whoever, to go, you know what, if I choose to think that this Batman was the Michael Keaton Batman, it could have been him. If I choose to believe that this Batman did all the things that I read from Frank Miller's comic books, it could be that. It could be from, you know, the Silver Age comic books, the Golden Age comic books. I don't think we'd have ever got a definitive answer on what happened with Robin and the Joker. I think you just meant to fill in the blanks yourself. And Snyder might have had something in his head as, you know, this is my take on it, but I don't think we'd have seen it on screen, to be honest. I think it's just choose your own adventure, fill your own story in. So
fair enough. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give Mr. G a right to reply on that. We have run out of time because I've got to fit this into my radio show. But guys, thank you so much for joining me. Please, everyone who's watching this, if you didn't enjoy this, don't worry. In about 4 years' time, we're going to come out with a Squee cut, which is going to be 3 hours longer. It's going to be much better. My internet's going to be reliable. It'll be wonderful. So for this little takedown of the Justice League, the Snyder Cut, I've been Doctor Squee, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, as apparently we're by law meant to call it. Joining me has been Papa Bear Paul G.
Thanks for having me.
Check him out at Who News. It's been James King from Retrek, if I'm pointing in the wrong direction. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Who's waving on audio? That works brilliant. And joining me below has been Level Up Leroy, the Comic-Con DJ.
Thank you. I've had a blast. It's been awesome, guys.
Thank you very much. And until next time, and a world where you can be anything, guys, please be kind. I've been Doctor Squee. That was my show.